Okay, I'm going to have to do this again. I was wondering why the thing was turning off. I didn't have it on record. Okay. So I'm a few days behind here, so we're going to start at day 38. I think that's where I left off. I'm going to have to make this quick because my battery's low. You know, my battery only holds so much. My card only holds so much. Anyway, so day 38, the reading was chapters 19 through 21. 1919, let's see, it's rules of conduct. Let's see, it says, don't interbreed animals, which are modern animals, are all interbred. Our dogs, what is it, the mule the inbreeding between a horse and a donkey. All of this stuff. There's even, recently I heard of a breed of, that was made between, what do you call it, a guinea fowl and a chicken. That would be, now, I don't know if these laws given are, I don't know the word, there's one of the words is prescriptive or post, I don't remember, but I don't know if these are like just guidelines on how to run the camp, or if these are actual statutes, like you have to follow this and this is what the judges are going to, they're going to stick to the letter of the law here. So it just depends on how they instituted what allegedly God told them. So these are really weird things. Like I said, you can't interbreed the animals. So every animal, domestic animal, would be against the law or immoral, you know, but according to this. You know, our modern animals, because we've inbreeded our dogs and our chickens and our goats and everything, all our livestock. Okay, it also says don't plant a garden with two different seeds. Well, our modern backyard gardens would be immoral because, you know, we're planting our tomatoes with our peppers and our onions and our lettuce, you know, and that would be it would be immoral or illegal according to these laws. It talks about don't wear mixed fabrics. Again, our polycotton blends would be immoral. You know, if it wasn't 100% one. I mean, even our synthetic fabrics would be, because the synthetic fabrics are made with a bunch of different other things. So you'd have to have 100% linen, 100% cotton, 100% flax. Now, I'm just highlighting the things that I have problems with. Chapter 19, verse 20. The New American Bible and the King James Version differ on this. The New American Bible whitewashes it, pun intended. Now, the King James Version says if a man rapes a slave, because a slave didn't have any choice, it's always rape. No woman had a choice back then of who she had sex with. It was all forced. So it was always rape. Anyway, so if a man rapes his slave, in the King James Version it says the woman should be whipped. It uses the word scourged, which means whipped. It says she shall be whipped, and all the man has to do is make a penance sin offering to God. And it says, let's see, 19 for 20, 20, well, I don't have the King James Version, but basically it says because she's his property. She's his sex slave. He can do what he wants as long as he makes that sin offering. Now, like I said, the New American Bible whitewashes it, and it said they shall be punished, not she shall be punished, but they shall be punished but not put to death because she is not free. Yeah, basically she's not free. She's his property. He can do what he wants. Further on down, 26 going down, it talks about silly stuff like don't have tattoos, don't, trim the edges of your beard, whatever that means, clip the hair at your temples, I guess your eyebrows, I don't know. Had some hairy people back then apparently. As they're not allowed to clip any of their hair. Oh, but here's a redeeming quality. Chapter 19, verse 29. Don't make your daughter a prostitute. Well, not technically. Not as in putting her out on the street. But you can make her a prostitute by selling her off to a man who wants to rape her for the rest of her life by way of a bride price. Okay, so even that isn't set. Even that has its limits. Okay, so keep the Sabbath, all this stuff. Chapter 20. Let me see if I got anything in my notes here. Yeah, 20 verse 9. If you curse your parents, you're to be put to death. Chapter 20, 10 through 21. Women were property, had no rights, and were raped. There was no enthusiastic consent. Yet here in these verses, the women are put to death in these forced relationships. It talks about all this, about not inbreeding. And women had no say in who they had sex with. It was all forced. And it talks about in these verses that if a man has sex with a woman, let's call it what it is, rape, because the women had no choice back then. The women were punished. The women were punished for being raped. You know, and in these certain circumstances, if a man lies with his father's wife or his father's daughter, blah, blah, blah. And of course, okay, fine, have the man have a punishment, but why are you having the woman have a punishment? She has no choice. She has no choice. She had no choice back then. It does talk in 1920 through 21. It talks about if a man disgraces his uncle by having intercourse with his uncle's wife, the man and his aunt shall pay the penalty by dying childless. And it says that in the next verse too. If a man marries his brother's wife and thus disgraces his brother, they should be childless. How would they be childless? Would that be a curse from God? Or would it be some horrific surgery that was performed on them by ignorant people who had no idea what the insides of humans look like? You know, or would the Israelites kill the babies, or would they take the babies away by, just take them away every time they had them? I don't understand how they would be would be childless without unless, it's just a curse from God, without it being just absolutely horrific. This is just nuts. Okay, and of course, why should she's the one who has to give birth and give her life to be giving birth? Why should she? And she was raped. This whole thing this is rape. Okay, why should she have to pay the penalty for it? For a man raping her? I don't understand. But the whole Bible is just misogynistic. Anyways, so now we're on chapter 21. The daughter of verse 9, the daughter of a priest who has sex outside of marriage should be burned to death. It actually states that. Yes, it does. Both the King James Version, New American Version, because she dishonors her father. Of course, it all has to do with the man. And it doesn't give exemption for rape. And as I said, everything was rape to women back then. They didn't have a choice. Okay, so, let's see. Oh, chapter 21, verse 18 through 20. Is highly offensive. Anyone who has a lifelong or temporary physical issue isn't allowed to worship at the temple. They can eat of the feast afterwards, but they can't. And I mean, it is awful. The King James Version is worse than the New American Bible in the verbiage being used. But it's bad enough here. I'm just going to read from the New American. Anyone who has defects, who is blind or lame, or any disfigurement or malformation, or crippled hand or feet, or is humpbacked or weakly or wall-eyed, or has eczema, ringworm, or hernia. Eczema is lifelong. Crippled hand or foot, that's probably lifelong, especially back then, when they didn't have the surgeries they have today. Blind or lame, probably lifelong back then. But in the King James Version, it even talks about dwarfism. And something else I can't remember. It was just highly, highly offensive. Highly offensive. God's a bigot. Anyways, now here we're on day 39. Verse 22, more nonsense on how to conduct worship ceremonies with a chapterly dose of misogyny. That's in chapter 22. Not much there. Chapter 23 talks about verse 3, for 6 days you work. This is talking about the Sabbath day, on the seventh day is the Sabbath day. And then talks about Passover. And then it says something about every 7 years letting your field rest and your slaves rest, and don't be doing all this work that you usually do. Just let everything rest, and God will provide to where you won't have to worry about food for the next couple years till your crop comes back. Which that I actually like, because not now, but back then they didn't have the mechanization that they have now. I mean, you're killing your body doing all this work. Let's see, 24. Okay, we're on day 39, if I didn't mention. Chapter 24, there's a difference from the KJV to the New American Bible. KJV says the woman is Israelitish. Okay, this is where the son of a Israelitish woman, her son quarreled publicly with another Israelite and cursed and blasphemed the Lord's name. And the penalty for this was the man was to be stoned by the they were to be stoned by the Israelites. They were supposed to gang up on him and stone him. I mean, this is gang mentality. This is just horrible. Just because he cursed the Lord. Really? God's that insecure that if he's cursed, he's going to have the person. And we all curse God's name. Now, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I just cursed 7 times there. And, I mean, I'd be stoned to death. I'd be stoned to death because I'm not a virgin. But, and I'm a woman. So, yeah. It's horrible. This is another thing. When I read this reminded me exactly of Jim Jones. Like, Jim Jones used to do that gang mentality. And anybody who disobeyed him, he'd have the congregation beat that person up right in front of everybody. I mean, really beat them. So yeah, this is definitely a cult. There was also something was at the beginning of this chapter. Chapter 24, verse 1 through 4, where, have everybody bring oil for the lamps, so the lamps will be burning evening till the morning. In other words, total cult, just absolute total cult, because everybody all the Israelites are providing for this temple and for the food for Aaron and Moses and the priests who are Aaron's sons. I mean, this is just a big cult. And I guess today's reading was 24 and 25. Here's the one that was most troublesome. I mean, there was other troublesome stuff, but this one was really troublesome, so I only noted this in this chapter. Chapter 25, verse 44. Slaves, male and female, you may indeed possess, provided you buy them from the neighboring nations. God's a bigot. You may also buy them from among the aliens who reside with you, and from your children, their children who are born and reared in your land. Such slaves you may own as chattels. And leave to your sons, not daughters, as their hereditary property, making them perpetual slaves. But you shall not lord it harshly over any of the Israelites, your kinsmen. So in other words, if the Israelites became slaves, you weren't to treat them harshly. Just just the foreign slaves. And it talks about, and then the next verses to the end are talking about how the exceptionalism, God gives special pleading to the Israelites. If a man has to sell his property because of poverty, he can come and reclaim it at any, at any time? Basically at any time, I think it is. But then at the years of Jubilee, the sale has to go back to the lineage of the man who sold it. The males, of course, the male lineage, because women had no rights. The male lineage of that person who sold it to you. And this is only for the Israelites. And this is, I think this is pretty much only in the countryside. I think the walled areas, I think it said that the walled areas were not, they could have up, they had up to a year to come and reclaim their property. And if not, then it was forever the buyer's property. But this is just, it's one big scam. It's like, you sell, the person who buys the property is going to lose it eventually anyway. So it's just, and this only had to do with Israelites. The once, if it was like not a full-blood Israelite, none of this applied. You know, once it was sold, it was sold. It didn't matter the reason. It didn't matter anything. So I missed a few days because I was just so busy. Today's February 9th. It's the 38th day? No, 39th day. I don't know what's the 40th day. I might have got my numbers wrong here. 40th day of Bible reading. Yeah, it's the 40th day. So there we go for the day. I would like to say if Matt Dillahunty ever comes across this video, which he probably won't, I would, he always uses Exodus 21 as the Bible verse, for, you know, how the Bible condones slavery. I think this Leviticus, let's see, Leviticus 25 verse 44 is much more convincing and much more detailed as to condoning and encouraging slavery. At least work slavery. You know, sex slavery, that's just been through the whole Bible so far. But sex slavery is for the females. I guess men didn't sell sex. I don't know. I don't understand how that works. But, or they weren't sex slaves, or it was just hidden. Might have just been hidden. Because I know men were having sex with men. I mean, you know, that's the way you're born. You're attracted to men, or attracted to women, or attracted to both, or attracted to neither. So, that's all hidden. I like how God hides that stuff. Anyways, can't tell you how many times I've thrown this book against the wall. So, I'll talk to you later.